When nomads of the steppe first leapt onto the backs of wild horses more than 5,000 years ago, the world was open for conquest. The mounted warriors thundered across Asia and terrorized Europe. The most famous was Djingis Khan, who founded the largest empire in history. Today, half the world's population lives in lands he once ruled. But the story of the nomads is obscured by the belief that they were uncivilized barbarians. So who are the nomads? How did they change the world? And what can we learn about them today? For Tim Cope, the only way to find out is to ride 10,000 kilometers from Mongolia to Hungary. Alone he must deal with wolf-infested wilderness, treacherous mountains, freezing steppe, searing heat, and war between sedentary and nomadic cultures. Tim is rocked by personal tragedy, but driven on by a nomad wisdom. To understand the wolf, he must put on the skin of the wolf and see through its eyes. For Australian Tim Cope, adventure is all about connecting with people and lands that he travels through. He has rafted one of the world's longest rivers and cycled from Moscow to Beijing.
When I was 20 years old, my friend Chris and I were riding bicycles across Siberia. And while struggling through the Gobi Desert one day, these amazing wild horsemen came galloping from over the horizon. They headed off to places that our bikes could never have gone. These people had a world without boundaries. I was spellbound by the notion that from here in Mongolia stretched 10,000 kilometres of fence-free land to Hungary. And that for thousands of years mounted nomads had crossed this vast space. When the Soviet Union collapsed, what had been out of bounds for so long was now open, and I had a chance to discover whether the nomad spirit does exist among the scattered nations of Eurasia.
Got about 10,000 k's to go now. Let's go find the horse.
A local told me that if I had any chance of making this journey, I'd need hero horses. These are the kind of tough mounts that would have once carried Djingis Khan himself. The only problem is, I can't ride a horse.
When I arrived here and saw the horses and smelt the horses, it just struck me it's actually happening. And made me realise I don't know much about horses, and the thought of going 10,000 k's, it's actually pretty frightening.
These people are making fun of my gear, and they want me to leave it behind. They even joke that white men can't ride. And what are you going to do when the wolves attack? And when the thieves steal your horses? When I was 7, I was bucked off a horse and broke my arm. I've been scared of horses ever since. These Mongolian boys, they're constantly proving their manhood. Eventually I was offered my first horse, and this is how they proved to me that it's a nomchon, which means calm.
And this guy's still pretty quiet.
Tim buys 2 horses, one for riding and one for his equipment. These are to be the first of 5 mounts that will take him through Mongolia.
My horses are going to be on the front line of this journey, and my job's to look after them. I've got a huge first aid kit for them, but I can fit mine in my pocket. It's weight that kills horses, not distance. So I've got 2 pairs of trousers, a couple of shirts, and 2 pairs of underwear that can easily become 4 by turning them inside out. The first question that everyone asks me is, Are you carrying a gun? And no, I'm not. I guess I just trust in the better side of human nature. Here I am, finally setting off on my 10,000 kilometre journey. But the locals don't think I'll make it more than a few days.
Tim has allowed 4 months in Mongolia to learn the nomad ways and travel 1,500 kilometres to the Altai Mountains on the border of Kazakhstan before the winter turns the steppe into Arctic wasteland. Tim set out alone, determined to film himself for most of the journey.
It's going to take all my energy just to cope with the horses, let alone trying to film myself, write my diary, put up the tent, find grass.
He's planned for his journey to take 18 months to Hungary, but it's a huge underestimation of the struggle ahead.
I want to write a book, make a film, and really get into the skin of these people. You could plan for a trip like this all your life and never be ready. Even though we live in the 21st century, and I've got this satellite phone, a video camera and my laptop, it's not going to save me. I take comfort in the Russian saying that if you never know where you are, then you're never lost. On a horse, I'm hoping to put myself through the same conditions that nomads experience. The landscape spreads out in some ways like one big ocean. You think it's 4 kilometres to the horizon, but it's actually 10. From here, the Mongols once headed west, didn't stop until they'd conquered everything as far as Europe. And at the moment, I'm struggling just to conquer the heat, handling the horses, and just getting by every day. It's about 34, 35 degrees now during the day. The horses don't like the heat either, and their moods seem to change. They get better when there's water and it's cooler, and when they're eating. Sometimes it would be nice to be a horse, just to stop somewhere, kneel down and start eating the grass. The weather here is unbelievable. One moment it's really hot, about 25 degrees. Next minute a big wall of clouds and a storm will just come rolling over. It'll just snap freeze. Your eyes become very well trained at finding good grass, finding water, and anything on the horizon that even looks remotely unnatural, you tend to pick it up very, very quickly. And in Mongolia there's almost always a couple of herders, a couple of riders, somewhere in the distance, and you know they've got their binoculars out, staring at you. I've got to learn how to hobble the horses and stake them out. Out here there are no fences. If the horses really take off, I'll never catch them. It's one of my greatest fears that they'll bolt off with everything and leave me stranded, alone. Without trusting that the odds will favour you when you take a risk, you'd never even begin a journey like this. This is the first journey I've done alone, and the scariest time is at night. The dangers they've warned me about all seem so much more real.
heard this terrible neighing from my horse, and so I ran into the dark and just discovered probably the worst thing possible. 2 horses were gone.
Come back!
And I could even hear them in the distance, just being taken away. But I couldn't do anything. It was pitch black. It's about 2:30 in the morning.
The horses are gone! They're gone! The horses are gone! Oh no! There's a Mongolian saying, if you don't solve your problems before dawn, then you'll never solve them. The following morning I was more than lucky to find my horses among a herd. A local herder said to me, "Oh yeah, I know these are your horses, they came to me by themselves. You must have tied them really badly." He taught me a very valuable lesson. He said, "A man on the steppe without friends is as narrow as a finger. A man on the steppe with friends is as wide as the steppe. If I camp alone, I'm fair game. I need to get to know the people, make friends, and camp nearer to their yurts, or gurs as they're known in Mongolia. By the unwritten laws of the steppe, I'll then be offered protection. Coming into a gur, I feel like I'm being cradled. It's such a relief, a real refuge."
One of the things we're privileged to watch at the moment is the storing of yak butter called rum, or it's a bit like a sweet thick cream, and during the winter they store it inside a sheep's stomach. So they're just in the process now of stuffing it, and that'll keep all of the winter.
Traditionally, it's the role of nomad women to prepare all the food. They have to milk the animals, look after the children and keep the home together. Meanwhile, men are the herders and the hunters. These people are really trusting me without any hesitation. I don't think there's anywhere else in the world where I'd be embraced so openly by strangers.
Always busy here. They're up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, milking, rounding up the yaks. So this is the morning routine, being woken up with some nice fresh yogurt and some tea and some yak butter.
At first I thought this was a really aggressive type of culture, where they just walk up to you and say, "Give me your horse, give me your saddle." Now I realise that they're just straight to the point, and it's a sign of respect, a compliment. Nomads really only value what's useful to them, and it's up to me to look after my horses and keep an eye on my saddle. My other valuables, like my phone and video camera, have little meaning out here. I've got to be careful with this little fella or I'll lose everything. People can't believe that I'd be doing this journey for no money. They think that there must be a pot of gold at the end, or that perhaps I'm doing it for a Guinness Book of Records, or that maybe I'm a spy. It's very hard for them to believe that I'm genuinely interested in their lives. When they understand that, they take me into their families and their homes as one of their own. This family's just slaughtered a goat. They've hung the meat out to dry for winter.
Mongol restaurant. One of the special summer treats is eating all of the leftovers. So in the bowl here we've got the hoof, there's ears and lips and just everything you can imagine.
I wasn't a big meat eater before this journey, and this is no place for vegetarians.
This is a bit of stomach, I think. This is a what?
There's no shops out here, and Mongolians hardly ever eat vegetables. One of the keys to my journey is carrying dried mutton called borts. A kilo of this can last me a couple of weeks.
And it's the same stuff that Mongols had during Genghis Khan's time, and that's how they were able to go so lightweight and yet still have enough food to survive. I look forward to eating it.
They used to say that with borts, Mongolian warriors could carry a whole sheep in their pocket. I found safety in Gers, but it's raised a real dilemma for me. My horses are going hungry because all the grass has been eaten out around these camps. I've got no choice but to go back out into the wilderness, where there's plenty of grass, but no protection from wolves or thieves. Well, I guess the thing about travel is just the extremes. Suddenly descend into this valley and it's just totally unexpected. Massive fire came through, burnt out everything, and you just got these amazing fireweed, and it's really quite wild. I haven't seen any people for a long time. Wolves are probably the thing that the herders and the nomads have been warning most about, because they come to attack the horses at night time. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly there's this incredible howling, and it's just the most fearsome sound. Puts a real blood-curdling feeling in your stomach. It sounds like there are hundreds of wolves, and it must be some kind of innate thing with humans. It's just absolutely petrifying. And the horses, they are prime prey for hungry wolf packs. The fire's been keeping them away so far.
Mongolians believe their ancestor was the blue wolf, and that to see a wolf is to be as wise as a wolf. To kill and eat a wolf is to inherit some of its wisdom.
The Mongolians are forever warning me about wolves and thieves. I'm constantly on edge.
From now on, Tim realises there will never be a perfect day on this journey. Either he can have the safety of a nomad family and let his horses go hungry, or find grass and be under threat of wolves and thieves. The night becomes his biggest fear, and getting up 3 or 4 times to check his horses becomes his routine.
I had just enough firewood to keep the wolves away until dawn. The skeleton and a little bit of flesh remaining of what probably was a young child, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years old. Very often the way that they bury their dead here is a sky burial, which in Mongolia means taking them to a mountaintop and basically leaving their body there. And what often happens is the wolves, whatever, go up and take the bodies, and you can find bits of bodies all over the place. People have been living and dying and riding horses through this land for thousands of years. And really, nothing's changed. The Mongolians believe that they are born from the earth and their spirit returns to inhabit the world around them. I'm just passing through these lands in the same way we pass through life. The horses are becoming my bridge to the land. I'm discovering a feeling of fulfillment and connection that I've never felt before. I'm starting to understand the miracle of life on the steppe. Horses are able to turn what little grass is out here into protein, which in turn supports human life. Wherever they could find grass, the Mongols could travel. There's nothing more satisfying than lying in the tent and listening to the horses graze. Like their wild ancestors, my horses know nothing of grain or hay. With 3 horses for every mounted soldier, the Mongols created the largest land empire in history. They invented the Pony Express. Messengers could gallop from Mongolia to Hungary in 2 weeks. But I've just got 2 horses, a bowl of semolina for breakfast, and I'll be lucky to make 30 kilometres before sunset.
It's 40 days since Tim set off, and he has travelled 1,000 kilometres into the remote northwest of Mongolia.
Just come along the edge of the most northern desert in the world. It's just over there, sand dunes as far as the eye can see. And it's been a tough day, and the most pressing need at the moment actually is to find water.
The only way to stop my horses dehydrating is to travel through the night.
It's almost 2 days without water before some herdsmen finally point Tim in the direction of a well.
My life's completely tied to the needs of my horses, and I'm relying on the nomads for their knowledge of the land. I don't speak much Mongolian, but out here everyone understands the language of the horse. It doesn't matter that I'm a foreigner. On a horse, people immediately know what my needs are. The wealth and pride of a nomad is still measured by the size of his herd.
For nomads of the steppe, the horse has always been at the core of life. They have been riding horses for 5,000 years and milking them and eating their meat for much longer. It was their ancestors who introduced the horse to the rest of the world.
In summer, fermented mare's milk called ærg is a staple. Slightly alcoholic, it was one of Djingis Khan's loves. There's never any hesitation to invite me in for a cup of tea, fresh cream, and horse sausage. Horse manure is used for heating and cooking, and it's hung from the ceiling to keep evil spirits away. Even the ropes that tie together the gers are made from horsehair. And so are the strings of the horsehead fiddle, called the morin khor. It was nomads who brought string instruments to Europe. These people have always lived by the rhythms and the moods of the steppe, respecting the wolf and worshipping the horse. In the past, nomads were even buried with their horses. They believed that the spirit inhabits every living creature, the earth, the sky, and everything around us. The horse carries you into life, through life, and into the afterlife.
As autumn closes in, Tim makes it to the beginning of the Altai Mountains. The way ahead is a maze of high passes. Tim is helped by a local herder, Dashniam.
If you judge the wealth of a man by how many horses he's got, then Dashniam's a very poor man. He's got 7 children and only 1 horse. I'm about to set off with Dashniam. Dashniam is going to be my guide for the next 8 days. It's very, very tough going for the horses, so I decided the best thing would be to get a camel to carry all of the load, so that basically the horses get a bit of a rest. Now we're gradually winding our way up to Ul, big mountains up here. It's just magnificent. Summer's come to an end and the nomads are moving down. The most important things for nomads is pasture and water. And that's the main reason why nomads have to move. There's not enough pasture all year round to stay in one spot. Each camel can take up to 300 kilograms, kids included. They're moving because the season's turned, and it's already freezing up there. They've got the whole ger, or the yurt tent, on the camels, and they're moving about 30 k's away. It's fantastic to see someone else that's moving, and to get the feeling that this really is a nomadic country. Lower down they'll find an autumn camp, then move on somewhere else for winter. They're adapting their lives to the needs of their animals. If they make a mistake, they're going to pay the price.
While Dashniam minds the animals, it's a chance for Tim to explore.
The Altai Mountains are a crucible of ancient nomad civilization. I've always dreamed of coming here. Oh my God! And this is, I've got to say, 10 million times better than being stuck in an office. Oh, I just never expected this view. Out here in the emptiness, it's like life distilled. Experiencing the mountains alone, I feel everything so vividly, and it reminds me why I've chosen to live this life of adventure. We're heading for the highest passes on our crossing. These peaks are around 4,000 metres. But even out here, we haven't gone unnoticed. and some hunters have found their way into my tent. They've just come in out of the cold. They've got a whole stack of fresh marmot that they've just shot, and it's nice for Dashnyam for a bit of company, and of course they're a bit surprised to discover there's an Australian here. Those hunters were actually staying in this cave only a few hundred metres away from where we camped, and we never knew they were here. And they've been living in this cave for about 6 days. You just get the sense that these guys are just incredibly hardened. To be living out here, they've got nothing except their coats, and here they are living off the marmot that they're catching. I wonder whether it was much different 1,000 years ago. I've not eaten the meat yet because it's got a reputation in Mongolia for carrying the Black Death. And sorry that if my words sound a bit slurred, but they've been giving me a lot of Mongol vodka made from yak yogurt. This is about as far as you can get, I think, from living in a city like back home in Australia. Mongolians are warm and generous people, but on the outside they really reflect the landscape. The landscape isn't affectionate, it's not kind. And perhaps that's why people always believed that the Mongols were barbaric. Because they are the hardest people that I've ever met. But in confronting death, they have to be hardened, because out here, if you don't accept that life is going to be hard, then you're not going to get through. The people out here never complain. They accept the way things are. And that's something I'd like to take with me from this journey. For the past 8 days, Dashnyam's guided me through the high passes of the Altai. But now he's got to return to his family before the way back is blocked by snow. Ciao! He has to go back the exact same route that we just came. He's going to do it in 2 days on the way back. I've no idea really how. I do wonder how he and his family will survive the coming winter. How he gets by with so many children and so few animals is beyond me. I'm now further away from a city than I've ever been in my life. Some people think that wilderness is a place where humans don't belong. But for these people, what we call wilderness is their home. It's a really raw life. A bad winter could wipe out their herd. Haven't washed for 15 days now, and I'm starting to feel it. Even these people who probably only wash properly, maybe once every 2 weeks, every month, they've suggested that I should wash. I washed every now and then, but took note from Djingis when he said that clean water is only for the drinking of man and beast, not for washing.
Tim crosses the Hovd River into Bayanolgi, a province in the far west of Mongolia, which is home to a Kazakh minority.
Horseshoeing Kazakh style. This is the first time I've come across horseshoes since I began. And this horse, good old Rusty,
He's about 16 years old and he's never ever had shoes on him in his life, so he's a bit scared.
Until now, my horses have been unshod, but the Kazakhs warn me about rocks ahead. These Kazakhs have been isolated here in Western Mongolia ever since the Russian and Chinese borders were drawn up. The Soviet era devastated much of the nomad culture in Kazakhstan, but here, traditional Kazakh life lives on. The Kazakh gers are much bigger and more elaborate than the Mongol gers. Kazakhs are renowned for their art and creativity. They're experts at spinning wool, weaving and felt work. Coming out of the harsh environment into this kaleidoscope of colour, it's such a contrast. There are 3 families living in this ger, spanning 3 generations. Life for them is definitely about getting on together. Many people mistakenly think that these nomad families are poor. Remote nomads often have bigger herds, and many can afford to send their children to university. Mongolia's literacy rate is actually one of the highest in the world. But it was often said to me, Tim, surely you need a woman on your journey. And by the end, you'll need a full caravan of camels and horses to carry your family to Hungary. The older women are especially concerned about me. How can I be 26 years old and not married? They have great pity for my mother. I'm a terrible boy who's left his family behind and is destined to kill himself by riding horses to Hungary. Beyond those mountains lies Kazakhstan, the next destination.
After 79 days on the trail, Tim has finally made it to the border of Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan is a much vaster, sparsely populated place, and with winter on my heels, a lot less forgiving. From here on, the mountains spread down to steppe, which extends all the way to the Danube. Horses are considered a national treasure in Mongolia, and so you can't take them out of the country. I've had to sell my horses and travel across the border to begin searching for new ones. Horse hunting party has grown to about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We seem to just pick up a new person at every village, a local, and they know where the horses are. It's a tough ask to buy a horse in any country, especially when I'm a foreigner in a land where people don't yet trust or respect me. They bring out these old bony nags with the ribs poking out and say, "Oh Tim, this is the best horse in the village." They're telling me that this horse is 12 years old. Later, an old guy whispers to me that the horse is actually 20. In a village like this, if the owner says one thing, then everyone has to support him.
The last few days have just turned into a bit of a disaster, to be honest. My driver, who I paid very well, and my guide got stuck into a bit of vodka. Didn't sleep for 2 days, they disappeared, we were late. And now back in the village, searching for another horse.
I'm finally offered a big chestnut gelding. His name's Ogonyok, which means small flame. I can just tell he's going to be a great pack horse. It's taken a lot of bargaining, but I've finally bought him for $480. That's a huge chunk considering I'm living on $10 a day. I've also found this horse called Tuscanir, which means brownstone. I can sense in him that he's a leader, and he'll keep my other horses in line. Eventually, we agreed to $500. From here on, Ogonyok and Tuscanir are going to be my lifeline. Without them, I'm not going anywhere. It's really crucial to get my horses shod because of the ice on the ground. Ogonyok has just been plucked from a herd. He's wild and dangerous. But there's something about his grit for life, his wild nature, and I think it's going to get them through. Ogonyok's never had a horseshoe in his life. He thinks they're out to kill him, and I don't blame him really. I can't believe how they're treating him. I don't know how he didn't break a leg. I feel sick in the stomach. I've spent almost all my money. No idea how I'm going to survive for the next few months. The horses are so expensive. And the people are very, very hard here. It's very hard to know who to trust. And there's 8,500 kilometres to go, and the snow's just starting to fall and it's getting cold.
Kazakhstan, the largest nomad nation on Earth, stretches over 3,000 kilometres from Mongolia to the Caspian Sea. Here the temperatures of the steppe range from 50 above to 50 below. Tim is about to be pushed to the edge by the most extreme winter of his life. But his tent is warmed by a new travelling companion. As the temperature drops to -40, he heads across the starving steppe to the only dot on the map, a town called Akbakai, known locally as the place that God forgot. When nomads of the Eurasian steppe first leapt onto the backs of wild horses more than 5,000 years ago, the world was open for conquest. The most famous warrior of all was Djingis Khan, who built the largest empire in history. He is still mainly remembered as a ruthless barbarian who terrorized Europe. But who are the nomads, the people who brought horses to the rest of the world? And what can we learn from the lives they lead today? For Australian Tim Cope, the only way to find out is to follow the nomad trail 10,000 kilometres across the Great Eurasian Steppe from Mongolia to Hungary, enduring some of the most extreme conditions on the planet. Tim and his horses have travelled 4 months and 1,500 kilometres through Mongolia into the Altai Mountains of Kazakhstan.
You actually see into Russia and just see China. And only about 200 k's that way, I actually sold my horses in Mongolia. And from here, if you look down, it just spreads out to steppe. And basically the steppe extends from here 8,000 k's all the way to Hungary where the end is.
Tim must now cross Kazakhstan. Ahead of him lies 5,000 kilometres of the harshest frozen steppe and searing desert to the Russian border.
I couldn't get my horses across the border, so I've had to buy new ones. I'm worried because they're quite wild, and I'm still learning to be a horseman. Ogonyok's young and seems unpredictable, so I'm relying on the older Taskinir to be a leader. With my 3 new horses, I headed down to the steppe. I'm lucky to meet Aset, who wants to introduce me to Kazakh culture. I'm going to need him because I'm a real outsider, and I'm heading into my first blizzard. Before he agreed to come with me, he said, "Tim, you'll have to ask permission from my wife to take me." When I asked, she said, "You can take him all the way to Hungary if you like." Aset, like many Kazakhs these days, lives in a village. In his heart, though, he's still a nomad, and he yearns to be back out there on the steppe. He understands the enormity and the danger of what I'm doing much better than I, and he's brought along his little dog, Tigan, to keep us company. It's out here that Aset seems happiest. The nomad in him's coming to life. Aset and I can both speak Russian. Soon he tells me we're lost. Worse, he's never been in a tent before. And we've only got one sleeping bag. I'd still prefer to sleep out on the steppe, but Aset insists that we sleep in this old Soviet relic, as the wolves are out. They roam in packs in winter, and they could attack the horses and us at any time. Every blade of grass, everything in the landscape's entombed in ice. Aset tells me that this is the beginning of a gjorde. It happens every few years, and few animals survive. Come spring, those animals that are alive are often naked. They eat the hair off each other's bodies. About 2 or 3 days without seeing anyone, and finally we made it just before dark to the village of Kindigti. And as usual, we just made in time for some herders bringing all of their cows back home. So we're just going to follow them and see if we can find a place to stay. Before I can even think about going inside to defrost, I've got to take care of my horses. Because of their nomadic heritage, Kazakhs understand that horses come first. The welfare of their animals is the key to life here.
In the 1930s, Stalin violently uprooted the Kazakhs' nomadic way of life. They were dispossessed of their animals and forcefully settled into collectives. Half the population died in famine, known as the Great Gjorde. The collectives collapsed after the fall of the Soviet Union, and these people are trying to scrape together a way of life, but are still living the tragedy of their recent past.
The Kazakhs believe that when a guest comes in through the front door, luck flies in through the window. In the evening, I realised this prophecy had come true. I offered Shamkhat my satellite phone, and he was able to call his long-lost sister in China, who he hadn't seen for 40 years. They say that a good player can make the dombra sing. In these sounds, I can hear the horse and the spirit of the nomad.
This is the reality of Kazakh cuisine, the national koza, which is the national dish of horse meat. This is called sorghum, the winter slaughtering of horses. They've fattened the horse up for a month. It's been sitting in the barn eating a lot of grain and a lot of hay. And now everyone's come down here to slaughter it. The family will send half the meat to their relatives in the city, where meat's very expensive, and they'll keep the rest of the meat here.
Kazakhs believe that eating the meat of a horse enables its spirit to live on. In Kazakhstan, few horses die of old age. To let a horse rot and not eat all of its parts is sacrilege. Aset's ridden with me for 10 days now. He's learned to trust my tent, and we've been taking it in turns between the sleeping bag and some horse blankets. Before saying goodbye, Aset said to me, "Tim, you need a friend on the long road ahead. Someone to keep you warm at night, and someone to protect you from the wolves. Tigan means fast wind in Kazakh. He's yours." Aset's been like a father to me. He's done everything he can to protect and equip me, and he knows that these first few days alone are going to be a great test.
Historically, it was in winter that nomads always travelled. It was also their season for war. Even now, Russians find it hard to accept that the Mongols were able to conquer them in the middle of winter, something that Napoleon and Hitler failed to do.
However difficult, this is an opportunity for me to understand the conditions that forge the heart and character of the nomad warrior.
Well, the temperature's dropped down to about -20. It's been that way for a couple of days. There's 2 metres of snow up here in eastern Kazakhstan in winter. If I don't move, I'm going to be stuck here till March. In these conditions, the Mongolian soldiers used to put pig fat all over their faces. And even when they got a bit hungry, they'd cut a little slit on the neck, on the vein of a horse, bring a couple of cups of nice warm blood, and then they would keep going for another day or so.
After 5 days without seeing anyone, I've made it to a village, but there's still no one in sight. I soon found out why. I've just been invited to a Kazakh wedding in a little village called Tansuk. And it's a huge event, I can't believe it. About 200 or 300 guests. Kazakhstan's a real fusion of people. Elements of all corners of the steppe can be seen in their faces. They're playing the dombra, and although they're Muslim, they've adopted a Christian style of wedding dress. For nomads, knowing your ancestors is key to knowing yourself and your land. You're not allowed to marry anyone within 7 generations. I'm given a piece of meat to eat the size of a football. It's called a zhelik, and traditionally it's given to honoured guests.
I guess it was inevitable, but the vodka is starting to flow. I left that village the other day, didn't get much sleep. I left when everyone else was hungover and back out into the cold, and you leave that sense of family behind, and you're back on the step and there's nothing but cold. And just before I go to bed, I throw a few firecrackers out the tent door into the dark as a way of scaring off the wolves, and hopefully it works. Again. Yeah. Come on. Hey, no. You can no. Yeah. Hey. Again. No. Away. Just cooking up the usual beautiful cuisine for breakfast. Halwa. And of course, in with the tradition, I tend to burn it every morning. It's pretty good.
Packing up is agony. It takes me 3.5 hours. My fingers and toes are frozen even before I get in the saddle. I'm so exhausted that I just want to sleep. But I've got to ride on for 8 hours. I just have to think small, one step at a time.
Just come over this hill and you can just see Lake Bolkhosh in the distance. Almost black in colour, the steppe, and it just spreads out. And I've never been in a place that's so empty. The biggest problem I've got at the moment is that it's cold, the lake's frozen over, I can't get water for the horses there, and yet there's no snow. I mean, they've got to look for water, it's hard to find grass here, and there's not many daylight hours.
Tim's horses haven't had any water for 2 days, and in desperation he detours to a railway siding. He finds water, but also desolation.
These men are so different because they're not living off the land. They're living off the railway that's bringing oil and gas and money. It seems to be stripping away the spirit of the place. They spend most of their day drinking vodka, and among them I feel more alone than ever. Some locals who call themselves hunters take me out to bag dinner.
And this is true modern Kazakh style, driving around in an old Russian car with the gun barrel pointing out the window in search of a few ducks or so. Well, so much for the hunting expedition. The ducks got away and we just got bogged. Beginning to think that horses are a hell of a lot better.
Собака. В голову попал.
The men here are really rough. This man told me that someone was coming to steal my horse in the night. He was right. He stole them himself. I caught him in the act, and he taught me about barimta. A man on the steppe who has the skill to steal a horse is respected. In return, you've got the right to steal it back. And not just a horse, but his wife as well. After that experience, I felt a bit like an injured wolf. But after a few days, I realised that I have to trust people. The only way to survive out here as a horseman and nomad is to depend on others and their hospitality. Somehow I feel like these lessons are all part of my initiation. I'm passing through my rite of passage, and it's not easy. Kazakhs believe that the spirit of their ancestors inhabits the land. Seeing these tombs makes me feel like I'm not so alone. My friend Aset's told me that I should sleep in them, so that the old men of the steppe will protect me.
Tim travels for a month along the 650 kilometres of Lake Balkhash. He and his horses are now weak and exhausted. Fresh snow cover enables him to head out into the most wild and remote part of his journey, the Betpak Dala, which means the starving steppe.
The dark's starting to consume me. I'm getting paranoid about thieves and wolves and the ghosts of the night. Ever since my horses were stolen, I've been having a recurring dream. I'm in the tent with my horses. I'm holding their lead ropes really tight, and I know that if I let go, they'll be gone, they'll be stolen. I grip, but they're pulling and I can't hold anymore because I'm exhausted. But just as I let go, this old man comes to me, and I relax and fall into merciful sleep. I've got a feeling that this old man is the protector. He's one of the old men of the steppe that people have been telling me about. It's 3 days before Christmas, and I'm desperate. My sleeping bag's frozen and my tent's ripping apart. If a storm blows in now, I'll be dead. I'm missing my family like never before, so I've decided to head for the nearest place, a dot on the map called Akbakai. Merry Christmas. Well, I made it to this town of Akbakai, and to be honest, it's just mentally the toughest part of the trip so far. I did 3 really hard days. I arrived here and the only place I could find to stay was with these couple of Russians in a partly built shack, and they turned out to be alcoholics. I had Christmas lunch was a pigeon from the street that they caught outside and brought in. The town's horrible. Tegan! Tegan, Ma, come here! Tegan! Hey, Tegan, Ma! Tegan! In the last 2 weeks, 18 stray dogs have been shot here, and the people in the abandoned mine, they're actually going hungry at the moment. There's no work, and they're known to eat all the dogs. After 7 days, we found Tegan trapped down an old mine shaft. He was close to death and was revived with raw eggs and vodka. They tell me that Akbakai is known as the place that God forgot, and I'm beginning to understand why. Tegan! I was meant to spend 3 days in Akbakai, and it's turned into 3 months of hell. I tried to leave 5 times. Taskania went lame, my petrol stove broke, and I went down with the flu. Every time the locals told me, Tim, if you ever have to rush in life, rush slowly. Finally I understood what they meant. On the steppe, it's the environment that dictates, not you. Unless I'm willing to surrender to the rhythms of the land, I'll never make it.
After 5 days of harsh travel, Tim's world changes as the morning sun brings the first signs of spring.
This family of nomads on the move has suddenly appeared. They're putting up their yurt for the spring camp. The steppe's coming back to life again. I'm just so inspired by the smiles on these kids' faces. Their ancestors have been migrating across these lands, using the very same campsites, wells, and knowledge for thousands of years.
Time for dinner, hey guys. Hey! hey, it's mine! I can tell you, it's just an amazing relief. The winter's over and there's actually signs of spring. This is the first bit of greenery that I've seen, well, for about 7 or 8 months. And I think it smells just as good as for me as it does for the horses. The horses can finally eat healthily and well. I don't have to worry about hay. For the Mongols, this must have been a wonderful time for them and their horses of lushness, of warmth, of being outdoors, running water.
Spring's also the time of camel shearing. They use the wool of the camel to make their winter clothing. A single camel can also feed a family for months.
This is what you call a camel in the lounge room. A hell of a lot of meat, and you can see the 2 humps from the Bactrian camels sitting right here behind me.
After 7 months of frozen steppe, Tim arrives at the river Siadaya, which he will follow to the Aral Sea. This is where Djingis Khan crossed the river and crushed the city of Otrar, his first conquest, beginning the largest empire in history.
The bridge is pretty poor, to say the least, and there's no way that I can get the horses across. I've been waiting here for a day, and finally we've come up with the solution of laying down all of my horse blankets, and we're going to try and just force the horses across. So I think they're going to be pretty frightened though.
It's been 3 hard days, and as usual the locals here are incredibly helpful.
I've borrowed some clothes to wear out the back there, washing my putrid travelling clothes.
This is Galkar. She's even volunteered to sew up my rapidly deteriorating pants. That's the great thing about being in a traditionally nomadic country. There's always a door open. They give you a room, they'll roll down a mat for you, they'll give you tea and even feed your horses. They understand the needs of a traveller a lot more than those in a sedentary society. One of the dirty realities of horse riding is having to clean the horse blankets every couple of weeks so that the horses don't get sores on their backs. I've been very lucky to find someone to help me wash them. In actual fact, she's done most of the work.
Jeremy.
This is the head of the camel here, with a bit of pasta. You can probably see why it's called Besh Barmak, which means 5 fingers, because you have to use pretty much 5 fingers to eat it. I'm not very good at it. They say in Kazakh that first time as a guest you're a friend. Second time, you're part of the family. Third time, well, you can stay for life. Every time I leave, I do feel like I'm leaving old friends behind.
I'm now standing on the edge, or what was the edge, of the Aral Sea, the second largest lake or inland sea in the world. Only the shoreline
about 120, 130 kilometres that way. And what was once a very busy fishing port here is now just a dust bowl. A lot of sand, a few old ships left, and not much else.
From the Aral Sea, Tim must travel 1,000 kilometres through searing desert heat to the Volga River. But here, distances are measured by grass and water. In the 1800s, in this very desert, in a disastrous campaign to Central Asia, the Russian army lost 10,000 camels and half their men to the elements.
Every summer here they have 40 days in a row of above 40 degrees. I've decided that the only way to beat the heat and save the horses and the dog from heat exhaustion and sores from the sweat is to travel at night. So tonight I'm going to try travelling all night. It's going to be a full moon, so it should be beautiful. It's about 5 in the morning and we've been riding all night to avoid the heat during the day. And it's in this state of mind, of course, that the Mongols used to have their deadliest attacks. They would ride for 2-3 days at a time without any sleep at all, and in this crazed, sleep-deprived rage, they would just descend on their enemy's camp without any warning at all. And of course they were so fast that no scouts could ever get to them in time. And there'd be just these mass slaughters. I'm living in fear of the rising sun. I can't sleep during the day because it's so hot. It's 50 degrees by midday, and the horses are so distressed that they won't eat. They're all getting skinny, and I'm exhausted. Can't go on much longer like this. I only slept 2 hours yesterday and then I've been up all night again trying to ride. Oh God. If I don't find someone to take me in by 8 or 9 in the morning, I risk being baked alive. This morning I'm rescued by a family of camel herders. They've got about 500. It's so hot here that they do all of the work in the morning and the evening, when it's cool enough to be bearable. The camel milk offers great relief from the heat. In fact, I'm growing to really love it. It's got a really fatty, sweet taste. They make everything from camel here. For them, camels are what horses are to people back in eastern Kazakhstan. The underground huts are a lifesaver. It's 50 degrees outside and there's no shade. Down here it's a constant 25. It's only late in the evening that everyone emerges. The camels are herded home in the moonlight and we all sleep outside under the stars. But now I've got to get up and keep moving. I never know whether I'm going to find the next underground hut before it's too late.
Oh my god. I tried to get the horses across the bridge here, and the back horse pulled back on the other one, and the third horse fell through the bridge. And oh shit, I thought he'd broken his leg. I undid a couple of straps, but it was just too tight, it was killing him. I got my knife and cut the rope.
He was so spooked that he ran into a nearby swamp and got bogged. Poor horse. By the time I got to him, he was really distressed. He'd almost given up. If it wasn't for the locals, I would have lost him. It's taken me 14 months to cross Kazakhstan. I've stayed with 90 families and come to understand the Kazakh saying, mountains never meet, but people do. It's great to be out there testing yourself in the wilderness, but there's nothing like coming back to the warmth of family and friends. In Kazakhstan, I've learned about the symbiosis between horse and man. After all, this is where the horse was first domesticated more than 5,500 years ago.
I'm worried about customs. I've never been across the border with horses and a dog. I've got the Kazakh customs, then the Russian customs. And I'm not expecting it to be that easy, but you never know. The problem is that no one knows how to process you. No one rides by horse, and as they say in Russian, "Первый блин комом," the first pancake never works out.
For the next 6 weeks, Tim is stuck in a bureaucratic no man's land. Russia won't let his horses in, and Kazakhstan won't let them out. He finally gets the permits on his last day of his visa. 24 hours later, he would have had to abandon his animals.
That means on horseback and with one dog.
In his journey to follow the migration of the nomads from Mongolia to Europe, Tim has left Asia and crossed into Russia. He is now in geographical Europe. Astrakhan is an old fortress city on the Volga River that came under constant attack by nomads in ancient times. But now it's Tim who is terrorized.
Oh, it's definitely Russia and a real shock. Tell you what, it's probably the most dangerous thing I think I've felt on the whole trip so far. Tiggin's also a bit uneasy about it all. Jeez, Tiggin. Come in.
This is the first time my horses have been in a city. I don't know who's more terrified, them or me. We rode all day through the city, and by the time I got to the other side, it was dark. I usually make sure I camp in daylight and check the land around me before I camp. I don't have that luxury tonight.
Oh, you probably can't see me, but I can tell I can't see anything. I can't believe it, the horses have gone. Anyway, I was unpacking and the horses just bolted. We've been searching all over the steppe with the emergency services. honestly have no idea what I'm going to do if I can't find them. It's almost like an unbelievable nightmare. Everything I own, the whole trip, has just disappeared into the night on the steppe. Within 30 seconds, everything had just disappeared.
At about 5 in the morning, one of the officers woke me up. He said, "Tim, I've had a dream. I went fishing and caught a red fish, a brown fish, and a grey fish. The same colour as my horses. We're going to find them, I just know it."
Early this morning, we found the horses, and very, very lucky and very happy that the police were so happy to help me. Very grateful and a little bit embarrassed about the whole thing.
As the winter sets in, Tim follows the Volga River before turning west, back to the steppe and into Kalmykia, the only Buddhist republic in Europe. The Kalmyks' ancestors came from Mongolia and were the last nomadic people to migrate across the steppes from Asia to Europe. They were the bodyguards of Djingis Khan.
This is one of the only places in the world where you can come and see the saiga. 15 years ago there was about 1 million of them on the Eurasian steppe. Nowadays, maximum, there's 40,000. And that's because of the demand for saiga horns in China. It's believed that they're helpful in curing colds. Poaching's out of control.
Like the saiga, the nomadic Kalmyk culture was almost wiped out by the Soviet Revolution. And then in 1943, all Kalmyks were exiled to Siberia, eventually returning in 1956 to rebuild their culture.
I'm lucky to meet with some of the guardians of Kalmyk culture. Okhna is a famous Kalmyk singer whose songs have topped the charts in Mongolia. He sings about the spirit of the steppe and strongly believes that his people should return to their nomad roots for strength and identity. Kalmyks believe that vodka is holy, and before they drink, they always take their finger and flick one drop to the earth, one to the animals, and one to the sky. Dorje is leading this cultural revival with his passion for horses and traditional craft. He strongly believes that ancient wisdoms of the nomads are important in today's modern world.
Он, значит, не уважает себя, свой родной язык бросил, свою культуру не знает. Как он может уважать другого человека? Да, мать моя рассказывала, что просто это дерево. Вообще в природе ничего нельзя просто так резать, без пользы. Многие думают, что я бесцельно держу лошадей. Но что поделаешь, раз любовь есть, пока будет возможность, я буду держать лошадей. Конечно, без лошадей я проживу, но жизнь с ними гораздо полнее.
Tim decides to winter in Kalmykia and wait for the spring festival to launch him on his journey. The Kalmyks embraced him as something of a hero. His journey embodies the nomadic spirit that they are searching for.
I'd ridden across those same steppes where many of their ancestors had died trying to migrate back to Asia 200 years ago. I feel like right here in Kalmykia, everything I've dreamed of experiencing has come true. I've found a Mongolian-speaking nomadic people still living in Europe, and they're Buddhists. I would never have imagined that. These are living descendants of the last nomads in history to make the great trek from Asia to Europe.
Ahead lies the Ukraine, where Tim will become embroiled in the age-old conflict of Russians and Tatars. And when he expects it least, Tim will have to face the greatest tragedy of his life.
I just got the worst news of my life.
When nomads of the Eurasian steppe first leapt onto the backs of wild horses more than 5,000 years ago, the world was open for conquest. The most famous warrior of all was Djingis Khan, who built the largest empire in history. He is still mainly remembered as a ruthless barbarian that terrorized Europe. But who are the nomads, the people who brought horses to the rest of the world? And what can we learn from the lives they lead today? For Australian Tim Cope, the only way to find out is to follow the nomad trail 10,000 kilometres across the great Eurasian steppe from Mongolia to Hungary, enduring some of the most extreme conditions on the planet. Tim's journey, travelling alone and filming himself, has taken him 20 months and 4,000 kilometres from Mongolia through Kazakhstan to the Buddhist Republic of Kalmykia. Now with his 3 trusted horses and dog Tigan, he must press on into southern Russia to the Black Sea. Ahead lies the Ukraine, where Tim will be embroiled in an age-old conflict between Russians and Tatars. Until now, they have been travelling through unfenced wild steppe, but this is where it stops. A Kalmyk Buddhist takes Tim to a holy tree to prime him for the challenge ahead.
My friend says I'll need a prayer for good luck, because in front of me lies cultivated land that's no country for a nomad. He says, beware, the most dangerous wolf is that which walks on 2 legs. Coming off the steppe, I'm forced to travel on roads. Poor Tigan, he's never even worn a collar in his life before. Everyone's wary of me, even the horses. When I first saw the green grass, I thought we were in heaven, but an angry farmer came rushing over and chased us off. We were trampling his precious wheat crop. This was the first ploughed land I'd seen on my trip.
Just thought I'd take the opportunity to say I feel like absolute crap. The shocking thing here in this district is that there's almost nowhere to graze the horses because no one has horses, no one has animals. It's all cropped. I mean, the fields extend to the roads.
This ploughed land, it gives me a feeling of complete devastation. For nomads, the earth's sacred and it shouldn't be disturbed. I've never looked at a field and felt this before. Perhaps I really am beginning to become a nomad. You look how I feel, buddy. You look how I feel.
I had a few drunk people come up to me and suggest that if I'm not careful, people are going to come in the night, hit me over the head, drown me in the river and steal my horses and sell them to the meat factory. Really charming. I think I've just decided that my pants probably aren't going to make it to Hungary. Pretty sad really, they've been with me for 2 years, I thought they were going to make it, but there's now practically more patches than there are pants. I'm afraid that people will just keep referring to me as a bomj in Russian, which means basically a homeless bum. Partly right, I guess.
Just as it seemed I'd reached the end of my tether, a bunch of Cossacks turned up and offered me some vodka. Despite being sedentary farmers, these men still yearn for their past. They were once legendary horseback mercenaries who adapted to nomad custom. Stalin made it illegal to own horses. It's clear to me now, to dispossess a nomad, you take their horse, plough up their land, and they've lost everything. Nowadays, Cossacks are going through a revival of their culture. I'm invited to the blessing of a newly reopened well. It's a holy site for Cossacks. The well had been filled in and forgotten about under Soviet repression. They found the original site and redug it.
И поэтому перед нами стоит задача именно возрождения этой традиции, возрождения этой культуры, потому что казахство очень рано было подвергнуто геноциду и репрессиям. И многое было уничтожено, а многое забыто. И поэтому, если мы хотим, чтобы казахство продолжалось, то нужно, чтобы... Сейчас иду, Виктор Алексеевич. Значит, нужно, чтобы молодежь наша знала традиции, знала нашу культуру.
Очень наш.
Национальный обычай.
Называется сулия. Я вчера ему говорила, рассказывала. Это казахский принцип.
At first they said I'd have to drink a whole bottle, then jump over a fence to become a Cossack. But then they say, well, actually, you're more of a Cossack than us anyway. Приезжайте, будем кенгурские шашлыки.
Tim's next challenge is to cross the border into the Crimea, and the last thing he needs is a repeat of the 6-week nightmare it took when he tried to enter Russia.
I'm afraid my horses aren't going to be allowed through. My horses are the journey. I can't go on without them. It was really as if I had a guardian angel when this man Luty just appeared. As the leader of the local Cossacks, he said that he felt obliged to help a fellow rogue like myself. Before we get down to business though, he says, Tim, you need a wash.
Russian banner.
Russian banner. Пойдем, Russian banner.
I don't know how Luty makes a living. Often he'd pull $100 out of his top pocket and tell me to go and buy some cigarettes or something. I thought for a crazy moment that he was going to fly me across the border. The best thing about these adventures is that you never know what's going to happen next. Luigi comes to an arrangement with his connections in the border police and sends me on my way, saying that all of the Kuban Cossacks are behind me. Made it to the Azov Sea. First time on the horses I've seen the sea, well, the real sea, since I began, almost 2 years ago. Salt water, horses don't really know what to make of it, either it's ticking. Made it somewhere anyway. The nomads of old once crossed this strait in winter, travelling over the ice. Fortunately now there's a ferry, and it takes me 2 kilometres into Crimea.
Through television and the media, word of Tim's journey has travelled far, and the local mayor welcomes him to the Crimea.
A lush sea of green steppe opened up before us. We're back on track, all 4 of us. When I think back to the terrible winters when it was a struggle to find a single blade of grass, this is horse paradise. It's one of the best parts of the day for me, the evening, starting to relax, the horses are relaxing.
Know how you feel.
Just making camp out in this wonderful open country. I think we all feel in high spirits when we're out here. Oh, hi Dad, how's it going? Dad's a lecturer in experiential education. He set up a whole university course and he raised me to experience life through adventure. Despite that, of course, he was a bit worried when I set off on this journey. I couldn't even ride a horse when I started, but as I've grown on my travels, he's come to see me as a man. And in a funny way, we've become closer from afar.
Stretching before Tim is where the Great Eurasian Steppe greets the Black Sea. With its open, dry interior and fertile land around the coast, it's always been a place where nomads and sedentary people have coexisted and clashed.
With the summer heating up, it was time to head off in search of better pasture. From here, the once nomadic Crimean Tatars had always migrated up to the mountains, where it was cooler and there was lots of lush green pasture. For the last 2 years, my horses have been travelling barefoot. And it's a very historical moment for the journey because it's the first time I've actually shod the horses since I left the Altai almost around about 20 months ago. And Andre says that his hoofs are just incredibly good. They're incredibly hard and in very, very good condition. He says he could run another 10,000 miles. But the problem is we've got some mountains ahead, so I've decided to get the horse shod again. My horses are typical of the tough steppe breeds that have always lived in the harsh climate of the steppe and once carried Mongol warriors into war. To go up into the mountains alone with 3 tethered horses is far too dangerous. The only person I could find who was crazy or brave enough to travel with me was this guy, Seryoga. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever met. In fact, the night before we set off together, he drank about 5 bottles of vodka up until dawn. When I woke up, he said, "Tim, come on, let's go." He leapt bareback onto his bony old horse that would have been chafing his backside. We must have ridden about 8 hours that day, and he didn't complain once. I can't imagine what his backside would have been like by the end of it. The only problem with Seryoga, of course, is that he's a chain smoker and an alcoholic. Seryoga works as a forest ranger and knows this land better than anyone. The only thing he loves more than vodka is horses. The most precious thing in his life, I realise, is his mare. He loves more than anything to be on the road with her. After a long day in the mountains and trekking pretty hard, the horses are resting, and now I'm being given fresh strawberries, cream and sugar. A Crimean specialty. Before heading up into the highest mountains, Seryoga decided to introduce me to the local prostitutes. This is them, a mother and daughter team. I'm not sure what his mother thought, sitting there drinking her cup of tea. Tigran was very interested though. Later that night, the young girl offered me a discount, but I decided against it.
Тихонько за руку меня взяла, взглянув лукавыми глазами карими, тихонько за руку меня взяла.
Unlike many people after the Soviet Union collapsed who deserted the steppe, Seryoga's decided to make his life out here. He can't bear the thought of living without horses, or the freedom of a fence-free life. In many ways I feel like he embodies the spirit of the nomadic people who once lived here. This is the evening ritual before I set up camp. We've just finished for the day. Have a bit of sala, pig fat. Just gives you that extra bit of energy. A bit for me. And a bit for old Tigsy boy. Tigran. I'm starting to think that these Russians have a completely different biological makeup. When I crave oxygen, he craves cigarettes, and when I crave water, he craves beer. Seryoga's actually younger than me, but he looks a lot older. The average life expectancy for Russians is about 57, but the way he's going, I'm not sure he's going to make it. It's great to have Seryoga here. Just to pack usually takes me 3.5 hours. We're looking for old nomad paths, but they're all overgrown, and when we can't find them, Seryoga just makes his own. The horses are out there somewhere. We're just hoping that they're not going to run away because the clouds are coming in, the storm's right around us. We can't even see them anymore. It's kind of like a whiteout without the snow. Poor Seryoga said that, well, if we haven't got any cigarettes or beer, then there's nothing I can do but sleep. So he rolled over and slept for a whole day. It feels like the rain has washed away the sweat of the last few days and cleansed the air. It's even had a purifying effect on Seryoga. He seems to be in higher spirits than when we started out. The main reason we've come up into these mountains is because my task is to find grass for the horses. These alpine pastures up here are where nomads have always come, to escape the heat of the steppe down below, that dries the grass out to nothing. In ancient times, this is where nomads would have always lived in the summer. The cliffs suddenly drop away 1,000 metres to the Black Sea. Tigan, get back! Suryoga's been with me for 3 weeks now, and we've forged a special bond. Unfortunately though, his mare's gone lame, and he's going to have to walk home. I'm really going to miss him.
Tim descends to the ancient town of Bakhchisarai, an old crossroads of the Silk Route and the capital of the Crimean Khanate that was once a powerful, far-flung outpost of the Mongol Empire. At the Khan's palace, he is given a hero's welcome. For the last 7 centuries, Bakhchisarai has been the cultural heartland of the Crimean Tatars. The Khans, who are blood descendants of Djingis, ruled here until 1783, when Crimea was annexed by Russia.
I feel for a moment like time has stood still. This is where the Khan would have entertained his guests. It must have been such a reprieve from the elements for travellers of old to arrive in this oasis after long journeys across the steppe. Tigan's making the most of it, and after bathing in the palace fountain, he stretches out like the Khan himself. In the light of day, despite the idyllic setting, I learn that this is a deeply troubled place. I meet up with Tatars who are part of a civil action to reclaim their land. The Tatars were once nomads, whose life revolved around the horse. Although they're sedentary these days, they're still culturally nomadic at heart. In me, they see themselves and a link to the nomadic past.
In 1944, Stalin was afraid the Crimean Tatars would side with the Nazis, so he deported them en masse to Central Asia and Siberia. Many died, and those who survived were not allowed to return until the late 1980s, but their homes had been taken by Russians. Despite promises of compensation, few returning Tatars have been given a place to live, and now have taken matters into their own hands. There are thousands of these tents across Crimea. This one alone represents the interests of 400 families.
Здесь собираемся уже до последнего, уже все. Пока мы эту землю не возьмем, мы отсюда не уходим.
At some point the signal will be given, and across the country thousands of Tatars will begin building their homes, and no one will be able to stop them.
Back in central Bakhchisarai, Tim meets Islam, the director of Tatar television, who wants to show him where the frontline battle is being waged to re-establish the rights of his people.
Islam carries a gun on his belt because of death threats from Russians.
As the Tatars returned in the 1990s, the Russians built a market on their most historic site. Regarded by UNESCO as World Heritage, there are 12 mausoleums here dating back centuries, housing the graves of Tatar Khans and spiritual leaders who brought Islam to Crimea.
As a local historian explains to me, the Tatars have been lobbying for the market to be removed so that the site can become part of a national heritage park. Although the courts ruled that the market had been illegally built and ordered the market's director, Medvedev, to disband it, he's refused to comply. During the interview, we're approached by an aggressive Russian. It's a reminder of how raw the tension is. I have to be really careful here.
А ты что? Идите, пожалуйста. Я даю интервью, что тебе нужно? Давай, иди, не мешай нам. Ну ладно.
The Tatars are picketing the market to shut it down, as can be seen on this banner, which reads, take away the market that's built on our bones. It's clear to me that this has become much more than a battle about a market. Many Russians still don't acknowledge the Crimean Tatars' claim to their homeland. A Russian provocateur torments the Tatars. Suddenly, Russian thugs steam forward and begin bashing the Tatars. Medvedev himself takes the lead. The special riot police are brought in, and as I film, I'm feeling really exposed. Being seen as a Tatar sympathiser, I often get very dark stares. The next day, Russians, intent on breaking the will of the Tatars, arrive in their hundreds. Cossacks, believing that it's their historical duty to protect Russia from Tatars, are also here in uniform and looking for a fight. I'm astonished that the very mention of the word Mongol or Tatar still makes Russian blood boil. Perhaps they really believe that the Tatars are coming again to take over their land as they did under Djingis Khan. When the adrenaline settled down, I couldn't help but see that this conflict echoes an ancient pattern of history. Ever since the domestication of the horse, nomads have been in conflict with sedentary society. They are two vastly different ways of living and viewing the world. It's left an enduring misconception among sedentary people that nomads of the steppe are simply cruel, horseback barbarians. It reminds me that this is why I'm on the journey. I set off from Mongolia more than 2 years ago, leaving my excess baggage behind as a sedentary being, so that I could become a nomad and return to the Western world looking through the nomad's eyes.
It's time for Tim to get out of Crimea, and he heads north to mainland Ukraine.
Been going 4 days straight now across the steppe here in northern Crimea. The heat's really hot, so I've only been riding at night time and early in the morning. I've been finishing at about 11 o'clock each morning and just relaxing, letting the horses graze, find a tree and try to keep out of the heat. It's quite obvious why Djingis Khan and the others never fought during the summer, because it's just too hard on the horses. And 4 days without a wash. Time for a wash.
This is something that nomads of the Crimea didn't used to have the privilege of. Soviet irrigation. This water comes all the way from the Dnieper River and it's shipped in here to the steppe via these great concrete canals.
Tim is now in Ukraine.
The heat of summer's gone and I'm in a very different world. Ukrainians have been sedentary people for thousands of years. It's the first time I've been in such an ancient sedentary society, and on horseback I'm seen as a novelty.
Mongolia?
Yeah.
Ну и куда зараз?
Сейчас в Венгрию, до Будапешта. Немножко остались. They have no comprehension of where I come from. And it makes me realise that, like in old times, their concept of the world is less developed than nomads, who once travelled the breadth of Eurasia. My horses are invited in for the night, but at first they're too scared to enter. They've never been in a stable before. Nomads always had their horses running free, out on the steppe, moving from pasture to pasture, which is actually the way that horses naturally live. And that's because nomads in general always have adapted their lives to the needs of their animals. To have animals kind of separated one from another is probably one of the cruelest things that you can do to a horse. It seems to me that both my dog, myself and all my horses are really feeling it here. I think we're all just feeling a little bit depressed and really desperate to get back out there.
Good morning. Heading into my third winter. I'm finding it hard to find pasture for the horses. But unlike traditional steppe, here is totally cultivated land. I'm going to be stuck again to tree breaks and wind breaks and... Oh, God. Don't feel good.
Just in the last few days, the temperature's really started to drop. There's real crispness in the air, and the horses are moving a lot faster, a lot more easily. I feel like the caravan's really starting to steam ahead, and I feel excited, and the landscape has become empty. This is just the time when most settled people start moving into their homes for winter. And this is, of course, the time when the Mongols were preparing for war, taking more land.
Suddenly, some devastating news arrives. Tim's father has been involved in a car accident in Australia.
I just got the worst news of my life. Dad's been killed in a car accident. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna...
My whole world's changed. This journey that has consumed my whole life for so long suddenly means nothing. Dad's only 56. How could this have happened?
Tim leaves his animals with the locals and travels back to Australia to be with his family for the funeral.
This next part of the journey alone, going back, is going to be the hardest. I'm going to feel more alone than I ever have. And I know that I'm not coming home to the family from which I set off in 2004. Things changed so quickly. I feel like I want to be closer to my family than ever before, and I feel bad about leaving my two brothers and sister and mother at home so close after after Dad having gone. At the same time, I know that, you know, I've got my dog Tiggin waiting for me and the horses. So this is where the horses have been for the 4.5 months I've been home. I'll come and see how they are. I wonder if they'll recognise me.
Kok. Taskanir. Ogonyok. Finding the horses is quite confronting. The poor things have been tied up on a short lead for 4 months. They've hardly been walked. Their muscles have withered away and they're covered in thick muck and grime. The worst thing is their feet. The horseshoes from 4 months ago are still on, and yet their hooves have grown out. It looks so disgusting and I'm paranoid that rot has set in. Somehow I have to bring this journey back out of the ashes. I've got to bring the horses back to life. I've got to get my gear organised. I've got to dust off the cobwebs and get my brain into gear, because honestly, I feel like I've just stepped out of the grave. It took me a long time, but eventually I cleaned the horses and brought in a farrier who re-shod them. Despite the condition of my horses, I'm still grateful to this man for keeping them alive. I had to leave them so abruptly, and there's a real lack of grain and hay here. If it wasn't for him, they would be dead. He's very poor, but he won't even take money from me. It's finally time to say goodbye. It's such a relief to be moving again. Tiggin's just like a bull at a gate. He can't wait to run. I've just left Kodima, and it's exactly 5 months to the day that I camped right on this very patch of grass here. And it's actually while I was here at this camp that I now know that Dad passed away in the car accident. It's a really scary moment, because I know if I move forward from here, I'm embracing the future. I'm moving on without Dad. I'm going into territory that I've never been before. So I'm just going to have to put my head down, 1 foot in front of the other. This is the scariest thing I've ever done, to go on alone. Perhaps the blossom a sign that a dark winter indeed has passed. The nomads have taught me so much about the transience of life, and it's really helping me now. I'm calmed by the snow and decide that it's a good day to stay put and recuperate. I can't describe how nice it is to see the horses frolicking. They've been through hell locked up in that barn for 4 months. Somehow the day in the snow has been just enough time for me to process things, and in this clear frosty morning I feel ready to start moving on. The horses' energy is beginning to lift. They're on the same path of rehabilitation as me. My mood always seems to be tied to that of my animals. Bit by bit, I can feel the inspiration seeping back again. The first time I really felt this was in a village where I was invited to visit the school. And just to see how happy these children were, I realised that this journey I was doing was a dream. It was something that kids really valued. Of course they were more interested in Tiggin. Tiggin, of course, believes that this whole journey is just for him. The kids usually ask, "What do you eat? Where do you come from? How far do you travel each day? Where are you going?" I love talking to kids because they tend to ask questions that are a lot more relevant than those that adults ask. Their ideas are clear and uncorrupted. I head further west into Ukraine, and the steppe gives way to hills with hidden villages in the valleys. A couple of weeks into my journey of recovery, I was taken in by a family of Christians. This old babushka was 96 years old, and she'd only learnt to read at the age of 83. She still walks barefoot into the hills every day to take her goats out to graze. I'm finding this unbelievable. How can anyone even live that long? It's so ironic that Dad died when he was 56. And she's singing these mournful songs about Golodomir. Golodomir was the famine during the early 30s when a huge proportion of Ukrainians starved to death because of Stalin's collectivization policies. Somehow she's survived this era. I find her so inspirational.
Господі, хвала Тобі і подяка. Господь дорогий, удостой прийняти з Твоїх святих рук цю вечерю і Тебе прославити, вічно живого Бога, Отця і Сина і Духа Святого. Амінь.
This food, which they say is made with the love of God, is as nourishing for my soul as for my stomach. I'm so humbled by their goodwill to help me recover. As we travelled further on up the valley, we came across the village of Bilcha-Zoloty. When the mayor of the town saw me, he was jumping out of his skin. He saw my journey as a chance to put his town on the map and was quick to haul in the local media and put on a special itinerary just for me, starting off with accommodation and, of course, a bath in the local sanatorium.
Санаторій тут супер, тут питань нема. Супер санаторій.
One of the treats is being able to come here and have a salt bath, and it's got special oil in here from the pines, that's why it's brown. The mayor is really doing his best to kind of treat me like a king, and he quietly came over and said that I can have everything I want, and if necessary, a girl for the night.
He was chatting up this woman, Maria, and he later told me that he'd lost his virginity to her, but she was having nothing of it now. The mayor of the village, of course, has arranged all this, and he's in the driver's seat, so it's a very romantic experience. Eventually I had to escape this town. The mayor was a bit of an alcoholic and a little bit obsessive. He wouldn't let me out of his sight for a second. When I finally did get out of town, I was making camp, and at about 3 in the morning I was woken. He was rolling drunk. He'd been fishing, and he brought me a big pike to eat.
Тім, напевно, трошки на світ засвітить, так, більше золоте. То з часом до нас тут прийдуть інвестори, і в нас буде і ставок, і млинок, і вишневенький садок. Дай Боже здоров'я.
За нас, за всіх. За вами. Дай Боже.
The people I've met in the months since my return has refilled me with energy and inspiration. The horses have regained their strength too, and perhaps it's just in time. In front of us towers the Carpathian Mountains. Crossing them into Hungary will be one of the greatest challenges of the journey. I've been anticipating this for 3 years. I just hope I'm ready.
As Tim and his horses attempt to climb the dangerous trails of the Carpathians, all he has learnt until now will be put to the test. Drunkards try to steal his horses, and a mountain girl tries to steal his heart. Beyond the mountains lie the end of the great Eurasian steppe. Can Tim get his horses and dog Tian safely to the Danube, which has been for eternity the edge of the nomad world? When nomads of the Eurasian steppe first leapt onto the backs of wild horses more than 5,000 years ago, the world was open for conquest. The most famous warrior of all was Djingis Khan, who built the largest empire in history. He is still mainly remembered as a ruthless barbarian that terrorized Europe. But who are the nomads, the people who brought horses to the rest of the world? And what can we learn from the lives they lead today? For Australian Tim Cope, the only way to find out is to follow the nomad trail 10,000 kilometres across the great Eurasian steppe from Mongolia to Hungary, with 3 horses and a dog, and enduring some of the most extreme conditions on Earth. But the greatest tragedy he has ever had to face, the death of his father, means that Tim must find the resolve to continue. Ahead lies the most difficult challenge of his journey.
Something I experienced very little during this journey so far has been rain, but I seem to be getting my fair share of it now. I've just arrived in the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains.
If it's like this down here, what's it going to be like up there?
Little change from the steppe. It's a different world.
Tim has travelled 9,000 kilometres in just over 3 years across the great Eurasian steppe, across Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Russia, Crimea and Ukraine. He now has to cross the Carpathians, the largest mountain range in Europe. It will not be easy. Tim is still grieving after the death of his father.
But the animals always lift my spirits. They've become my family. When things are bad, I only have to look down to Tiggin's eyes and I know everything's okay. Ogonyok's been with me for 2.5 years. He's a strong and gentle horse, but so paranoid that he'll bolt at the sound of his own fart. Cock, well, he's still a young teenager. He's finding his feet and he's a bit awkward and a little bit uncoordinated. But luckily I've got Taskin here. He's been leading me since Mongolia. He's got a great sense of seniority and I know that he'll keep the other guys in line when they misbehave. Every time I get pushed to the limits, I just have to remember, the point of me being here is to put myself through the same conditions that nomads went through on their journeys to Europe.
The Mongol warriors believe that all spiritual paths sprang from the eternal blue sky and spread across the earth below. In a moment of great crisis, the young Djingis Khan turned his prayers to the mountain, and the mountain gave him strength. Tim crosses the first ridge of the Carpathians.
When I slipped down into the valley over the other side of the ridge, it was as if another whole world had opened up. This was the home of the Hutsuls, mountain people who've been fiercely independent for hundreds, if not thousands of years. During World War II, they fought against both the Nazis and the Russians. And somehow, throughout the Soviet era, they managed to preserve their identity, their culture and traditions. Mikhail is the last Hutsul alive who knows how to make and play the duda. Like the people on the steppe where I'd come from, their life revolves around the horse. The Hutzul horses are actually the descendants of those left behind by the Mongols when they retreated from Europe. You can see the black line running down its back. That's actually a remnant of the Tarpan horse, which used to be a wild horse on the steppe. The amazing thing is that this saddle is a spitting image of the saddles that I was seeing 3 years ago when I began this journey. So perhaps here in the Carpathians we're seeing one of the last legacies of the Mongols in Europe. I descended to the village of Krivorivnya, where I met this tall, imposing figure, Ivan. He looked a bit like Jesus Christ.
Hello, Tim. С приездом к нам.
Добрый день. Спасибо. I speak Russian, and I'm starting to understand Ukrainian too.
Тут всегда так весело. Весело всегда. Жить некогда, только веселиться.
Ivan decided to take me under his wing and explained that he used to be a mountaineer. While climbing in the Tian Shan of Central Asia one day, he arrived at a peak and realised that he just wanted to go higher and higher, and that's where he found his belief in God. The church really is the heart of this community. The more I get to know these people, the more I see traces of the nomad culture that I've come to know so well. They openly admit that they've got a lot of Mongol blood in them. In fact, some of them point to each other and say, "Oh, she must have had a Mongolian father." You can see it in their eyes.
This is святая вода, да.
My sister's daughter. My sister's daughter.
This is for you and for your friend. You can take it.
Tim finds time to strike up a friendship with Irina, the niece of Ivan.
Horses have become my friends, and he's the most sensitive. So first I was very afraid, and then slowly I came to understand them. And now I'm not afraid of them because I understand why a horse does what it does, because it's in its nature. And once I understood them, I'm not scared of them anymore. It's going to be hard to live without horses in the future. I think I'll miss them very much. You don't want to ride? You don't want to try?
A little bit later.
I always find it inspirational to speak with young people. Сейчас такой большой стал. У него, кстати, дети есть. Это была судьба, у него Лубов был в России. Сказали, что я должен уже платить элементы. The children live a life that's close to nature, and you can see that in their happiness. They've got a kind of freedom. They don't know fences or borders. They've had these mountains to play in through their childhood. Every winter, Ivan has to walk through these mountains for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. He does it barefoot through the snow. Part of his job as the local priest is to visit every single person in his parish.
У нас на парафии более 600 домов. Таким образом осуществляется связь с людьми на парафии. Я знаю каждый дом.
He also has to bless every stream. His belief in God is directly related to his belief in his own culture, his own land.
Oh, Hanya, волк. Волк є.
In the nomad's belief, seeing a wolf is a sign of extremely good luck. The legend goes that when God was giving out land, the Hutsuls arrived late and were given mountains with poor soil and a harsh climate. But to compensate for that, God gave them incredible skills in craftsmanship and creativity. It's a common trait among nomads to colour their life with art. Vasil, who's now 84, has been making traditional hats from the age of 16. He makes about 100 every 6 months, and every single one is unique. And when the Hutsul people wear their clothing, you get the impression that they're not just wearing it for display. He carries the very soul of their way of life, of their ancestors. He even decides to show me his coffin that he personally handmade. Everyone does it up here in the Carpathians when they're about the age of 40. He's got his best clothes in there, because he wants to be well dressed when he goes into the spirit world. They remember here that life is transient.
Every spring, the semi-nomadic Hutsuls gather to celebrate the seasonal migration to the high pasture of the Polonino, the same journey Tim will be taking tomorrow.
The festival turns into this amazing celebration. The local provincial governor comes by and takes me under his wing. Every stand here represents a different Hutsul village. And we've got to get around about 30 of them, and every single one, they give us vodka. I don't know how on earth the governor's still on his feet by the end, because I hardly am. There's so much pride about their culture and their past. So purely a celebration for the sake of being together. Because this is life.
Tim finds Misha, a local farrier who turns his hand to making the special winter shoes for the Alpine crossing.
Cook's never been shod before on his back legs, and running out of time and patience, and so I've decided not to shoe him, so hopefully he'll still be okay. Most important thing is that his front hooves are shod so he can get through the mountains.
First, when I heard about you, I was a little bit, I thought that you are a little bit odd, because you took such a big trip. I don't know how to say, so great. It's and you have been traveling for 3 years.
Yes, almost.
But when I got acquainted with you closer, I understand that you are not odd. You are just brave. You're just a brave person.
Thank you very much. For a small space of time, I became a part of your life, and you became a part of mine.
Okay.
So you can take my horse.
Okay.
We're going to... I would have loved to have stayed longer in Krivorivnia. We were starting to get to know each other. People in this area know the dangers of travelling up to the Polonino, where the weather can be very unpredictable. Because of that, Ivan decided to bless my horses, and even Tigan. And as we left, Ivan said to me, "May God give you strength."
We wish him good luck in his traveling, good weather, good and interesting interlocutors, and all the best from people who live in Krivorivnia.
I've refound my inspiration for life. And I realised that I really do believe in this nomadic way of living.
Tim now has to cross the main ridges of the Carpathians that lie between here and Hungary. This area is known for its violent electrical storms, and he can expect snow and ice.
I've been living in fear of these mountains since I began, and now it's time to confront them.
For centuries, people have been taking this path to the high plains of the Polonino.
As we headed off, we soon came across a family that was also migrating up to the pasture. They were still sore and sorry from the celebrations of the day before. In fact, they were still drunk. They told me that I had to give them horses. Aggressive local. They said that because I wasn't a Hutsul, they were going to kill me, just like their forefathers had done to Russians and Nazis. I'm staying away from them, but I just can't believe these poor little horses of theirs. So I've just got another horse to come up, and interesting to see how they do this. This is something extremely tough.
Halfway through the forest, Tim meets up with Yuri and Gregory, two local mountaineers who will help him with his horses over the mountains ahead.
Finally, we emerge from the forest. Those poor Hutsul horses have somehow made it up too. We're heading towards the highest mountain in the Ukraine, and from there we're going to have to cross the main ridge, which is above 2,000 metres. It's going to be a big day for the horses. And it's constantly bombarded by storms. Last summer, there were 2 boys killed by lightning on this spot. The nomads have taught me to embrace whatever comes my way, the good luck and the bad. And as they say, trust in God, but always tie up the camel. So this is the old border post between Poland and Czechoslovakia. This landscape's been washed for millennia by many different people. Of course, the Mongols came over these mountains into Hungary in the 14th century.
As he stood on these high parapets before facing the sedentary armies of Europe, the Mongol warrior prepared himself for battle. On and off the battlefield, the warrior was forbidden to speak of death, injury or defeat. Every Mongol soldier had to live his life as a warrior, and with the assumption that he was immortal. After 5 days of hard climbing, Jim must cross the highest ridge, but it's difficult to find a way through.
We'll only take one slip here, and we're all going down together. So we're just going to take it very carefully. I'm very aware of the risks. It's just far too tricky here. We're going to have to find another route. I almost slipped down there myself, and we're going to have to probably go over the back of this.
They eventually find a way over the ridge, but the way ahead is not much better. Cock, who doesn't have any special snowshoes on his hind hooves, is now in the greatest danger.
I can hardly look, to be honest. Cock is just so young, awkward and unsure. I can rely on the trusty Tuscanir to be sure-footed. But then Ogonyok, he's not much better than Cock. He's nervy and likely to do anything at any moment. Cock, a little bit back there, actually slipped down a rock. We have to be very careful.
But it's not just the horses that Tim has to worry about.
You see Tigan? Tigan! Ma! Sometimes it's just bit for half an hour, but usually he just comes back. Tigan! Ma! This breed of dog is called a tazi. They're renowned in Kazakhstan for not being afraid of wolves. Ma! That's one of the things I'm worried about the most. I can't begin to explain how much he means to me now. He's become my best friend. Having crossed the highest pass, it was time to say goodbye to Yuri and Gregory. I'm alone again, and ahead lies these vast alpine plains, the true Polanina. Tigan's more than happy to take over as guide. I'm actually proud of Tigan. He's become a real man, a real dog. He doesn't take any crap from anyone anymore. Oh, Tigan's really in pain when he tries to urinate. And he's vomiting now. I don't know what it is. Just arrived up on the Polanina. The sheep have just been milked. It's paradise. This is the temporary hut of the Hutsuls, and they come up here in summertime to make the brinza cheese. And brinza cheese slightly tastes like parmesan, but it's a lot fresher. They have it with porridge, with bread, with vodka. Doesn't get much better than this, really. I ended up camping with a tough group of young boys who were responsible for milking 400 sheep and protecting them from wolves and bears. It's amazing to think that such young boys have so much responsibility. They have to sleep out in these tiny little hovel huts that are kind of surrounding the pens. So they're protecting the sheep 24 hours a day, and if they lose a single sheep, they might lose their wages for the whole summer. 3 times a day they have to milk 400 sheep, once at 4 o'clock in the morning, once at lunch, and once in the evening. Nomads right across the steppe live off milk in the summer. Oh, I got myself. Oh. Oh, Tigan hasn't eaten. He's not feeling the best. I'm hoping that he'll start eating today. Is there something I said, Tigan? When Tigan's down, my spirits sink too. The worst thing is when people, the first question they ask when you arrive in a village is, do you have parents? And what are your parents? And what does your dad think? Of course you have to tell the story. Can't believe it. Tigan still hasn't eaten, but at least he's on his feet. Sometimes the horizon just seems so far, and you just want it to end. You want to somehow quickly finish. Sometimes You have to have a few shots of vodka to make sense of the world around you. Certainly that's the case in my experience in Russia. It's a great way of bonding, especially since for them, vodka's something sacred. They believe that you must drink at least 3 shots.
That's number 5 at lunch.
And if you start a bottle, then you have to finish it.
They said that will get us through to dinner, then there's going to be another couple of bottles.
Welcome.
Although I usually say no to drinking vodka, in the right company, it feels right to just surrender.
За щастя, здоров'я, аби це завжди були такі мужики, великі,
Знаєш, коли разом було п'яно? Бери Галечку. Бери, мама.
And now it's Tiggin's turn. This is a mix of chicken bones, corn and cream, oil and sour milk. And I'll give him a dash of vodka. I had too many vodkas, mate. That vodka's done the trick for Tiggin. And it's done the trick for me as well. I feel like I'm losing myself, and sometimes that's not such a bad feeling. Just to let go of the reins and let the journey guide you. I've actually got no idea where I am.
People don't have a clue about maps. It's usually just a matter of I always find my own way anyway.
Paskini is getting a little bit impatient with the locals too.
А вот это какая гора, не знаете, как
No one knows the road to Устюрна.
Там хребтом, там поле одно, полянка вот тут есть.
I was probably less confused before I asked him.
И прямо зайдете.
Tuscany has just about had enough for one day.
Some people ask if I feel lonely during this trip. I miss my friends and family quite often, but to be honest, when I get a chance to be on my own with the horses and the dog and a campsite like this, I just relax, and it's just sweet moments of joy, really.
It's dawning on me that this is the last time I'll be out in the wilderness on my own, with my animals.
What do you want? Oh, what does that mean?
It must have been amazing for a Mongol having gone through such a mammoth challenge, to come over this last barrier, the Carpathian Mountains, and there below him lay Europe, the plains of Hungary. Tomorrow, we're going to go down from these mountains, and I dread to think what it's going to be like.
Tim has crossed the Carpathians, but now there's another mountain for him to face. Re-entry into sedentary society.
I've been travelling for more than 3 years across the steppe, and I don't know how I fit in down here.
Barbed wire fence, the first time I've seen it, it's so ugly.
The scythe is one of the greatest symbols of the sedentary world, and nomads must have thought that these people were crazy. I mean, Why go to all that effort? Hours and hours and days of hard work in the hot summer to cut the grass and bring the paddock into your shed. Surely it's much easier to let your horses wander from pasture to pasture. I'm in a land where there's more hay than ever, but it's all fenced up. They say that they can't afford to give me any hay at all. There's a Ukrainian saying that tells a lot about the mentality of the sedentary person. Beyond my house, nothing concerns me. This is a change in mentality. I'm approaching Europe. There's still 60 kilometres to Hungary. Somehow, I've got to get my 3 horses across the border. That could prove to be the biggest battle of all. The plains down there is Hungary. You know, it's funny, it's just a tiny moment to come over this hill and saw this, and yet it's a moment that I dreamed about for so long during this journey.
Tim might have made it to the border of Hungary, but he still has to get through it. He's held up for 6 weeks while officials argue over his documents for the animals entering the European Union. As he approaches the border post, Tim is still uncertain that his horses will be allowed in.
I'm nervous as hell. I guess the worst that could happen here on the border is that they could confiscate my horses and... Video. Stop video. These stamps are music to my ears.
Autograph.
Timothy John Cope, Live Down, now the official paper of the European Union.
After weeks of frustration, Tim is finally welcomed into Hungary. But the invasion of 8 centuries before was another matter. European knighthood was destroyed. Nearly 100,000 soldiers were killed by the Mongols, leaving the impression that they were ruthless barbarians. And yet today, Tim arriving in the footsteps of the Mongols is to receive a welcome. Hungary is unique in Europe in its nomadic origins, and word of his journey has preceded him.
Welcome to Düsseldorf. Please come inside.
Thank you. Welcome to Hungary, you little ripper. I've just been invited into a castle that's actually now an orphanage. Just for a night I can really enjoy this.
The Hungarians' ancestors, the Magyars, were once nomadic warriors themselves. 1,000 years ago they migrated from East Asia and settled here, predating the Mongols by centuries. In Hungary, with its unique language and cultural identity, there is a living connection with the past. But it's under threat from modern Western culture.
I couldn't believe it when I found out what was being done to keep the nomad spirit alive in Hungary. The Hungarian government has set up a national heritage park where they're preserving the gene pool of the original wild steppe horse. It's amazing to think that all horses in the world originate from this breed. I'm introduced to Kossuth Lajos, who's famous in Hungary for reviving the art of horseback archery. He's dedicated his life to living by the ideals of the ancient nomad warrior, and he's got thousands of followers worldwide. It's awe-inspiring. He's able to shoot off 6 arrows in 12 seconds at a full gallop and hit the target every time. It was these warriors that demolished the feudal systems of Europe and paved the way for light horse cavalry that was to become the standard for European armies of the future. Peter couldn't welcome me to his land. Here he is, a professor of anthropology. He speaks Kazakh, Mongolian and English. He works in a university and he's created a nomad world where he lives out here on the steppe. In Hungary, I feel myself very spoiled.
People are looking after me very well everywhere.
Because you honored our culture. The Cumans and the Hungarians came from the east, so you honored our history. And that's why we have to honor your trip. Do you know this knot? We regard that this is a Cumanian knot. And every horseman in Hungary uses this to tie his horses.
I will show you the knot. And this knot was taught to me in Mongolia by a Mongolian man on the first day of my trip. And when I was in Kazakhstan, they said, how do you know this knot? It's Kazakh knot. And in Kalmykia, they said, this is Kalmyk knot. So
but this is not true, this is the Kumanian.
It's the Kuman knot.
This knot tied together 5,500 years of humans and the horse, and this vast land that stretched a third of the world. I haven't been in a yurt like this since I was in Kazakhstan. It's like I've come full circle. In Hungary, I feel like there's living proof that we can hold on to their wisdoms. I'm determined to hold on to what I've learnt. Peter Kun turned around to me one day and said, Tim, I can see in your heart and your mind that you've become a nomad. And when he said that, it kind of crystallised in me that I'd done it. I'd put the skin of a wolf on. I was at home among nomads.
After 1,129 days, Tim is now only one day away from his final destination, the Danube River.
In 3 years, I've thrown away the shackles of time pressure and plans and adjusted to what the environment dictates. Time is measured more in the abundance of water, the lack of grass, the heat, the cold. When I started, I was 25. In 5 months' time, I'll be 29. For me, the world has happened. On the Danube, it's the end of the steppe and the end of the nomad world, and it's the end of my journey.
At the Danube, the Mongols lost the advantage of speed and mobility that the grassy steppe gave them. The world of forests, rivers and ploughed fields was not for them.
I'm standing now on a kurgan. These ancient nomad graves can be found right across Eurasia. But like my journey, they end here, on the Danube.
One day to go, Tiggs. One day. Tomorrow it's all over.
Of course, one little fella that does have an idea of what it was like to travel all the way from Mongolia is this one, Tigin. And he's had an amazing parallel journey. I really don't know what I'd do without him. He's seen the cold, been stolen, he's been hit, he's walked twice as far as I. And just like Djingis Khan, he's been marking his territory the entire way. And God knows how many babies he's left behind, how much of his DNA is sprawled from Mongolia to Hungary. But I'd say he's the dog with the biggest empire in the world at the moment. It stretches the breadth of Eurasia. So I think really it's him who's been taking me, and it's Tigin that should be crowned the reincarnation of Genghis Khan.
4 kilometres away, a welcoming party is gathering at Opus Tercer, where the nation of Hungary was founded by Arpad, the leader of the Magyar nomads, who came from Asia in 986 AD.
1 or 2 kilometres to go. I know that Tigin really doesn't know that this is his last day on the road. Nor do the horses know. It's just struck me that I actually don't know either.
The first known crossing of the steppe in modern times has caught the imagination of media throughout the world. Representatives of the governments of Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Hungary and Australia are there to welcome his achievement.
I can't imagine life without the horses.
This is more than just a journey. It's become my whole life.
I can see the end, but I don't want to go to the finish.
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Love you, Tim.
Oh, thanks, guys. My mum's here, and my brother John.
So this trip was made by our nomad ancestors as well, and it's very good that you made it again.
This journey is really in honour and tribute to all of those who came a long time before me. My horses are the heroes of this trip. I'd had to think a long time about what I would do with the horses. In the end, I decided that I would give it to the children's home in Tissadov. The true measure of this journey is in the hundreds of friends that I've made. It's 3.5 years ago since an old nomad in Mongolia told me, a man on the steppe without friends is as narrow as a finger, and a man on the steppe with friends is as wide as the steppe. I know. You all want to know what happened to Tigin. Unfortunately, I had to leave him behind in Hungary. That was until I could raise the money to get him on a plane. Now 12 months since I saw him, or more than 12 months, but he's touched down in Australia. When there's a dog, there's a way.
Tigin? You got it. You will.
Since finishing, I've returned to Mongolia to see my friends twice. But how am I adapting to life at home? It's a work in progress.
Yüzüngine cangar